So we've entered the month of March, and this means that we are closing in on a new sailing season here in Chicago. This is when I start thinking about, okay, it's time to change the engine oil, make sure I have a new oil filter, change the fuel filter, clean the bowl of the fuel filter, and then also swap out the impeller. So I'm going to start those processes. Because I am still in hard, I can't run the engine to warm up the oil. So I'm just going to try to suck out what I can from the dipstick entry point here and get as much oil out as I can and then replace it. Warmer, heated oil is going to flow easier and get sucked out of the oil repository. But in this case, we are going to do it with the engine cold. And that's just kind of part of doing it in the off season. We're going to check the dipstick and look at the consistency and color of oil. It really doesn't look too bad. I could probably not do this and get away with it, but why take the risk? Generally, very good practice to change out the motor oil every year. It's the amount of use and the age of the oil that are the two factors that you have to consider. The next step is to take the oil fill cap off so that air can circulate in there. We don't create a vacuum when we stick a pump hose down into the oil repository and try to suck it out. It's right here. So we're going to open this. That's tightly on. There we go. And we will pull that off. So everything we do from here on out is going to be well ventilated down there. I've got some absorption pads so that we don't make a mess. And you can see here's my pump. And right next to it is a lithium battery. That's a 15 amp hour battery. We're going to use that to power the pump. You can see it as a DC pump. And we have a few quarts of replacement oil. I have a little more replacement oil over here. And you can see I've got an old kitty litter bucket. That's where the oil is going to drain into. It's going to come from the dipstick area here into that bucket via the pump. The time-consuming step is going to be getting the old oil out, especially when the oil is cold. Okay, I'm constantly checking this pump to make sure it's not overheating or getting too hot. All right, we emptied as much of the oil as we could out of the oil repository here. So now we're going to take off the oil filter. I expect that there will be a little oil leakage, which is why I have these absorbent pads pre-staged underneath the filter. I've got my oil wrench here, so we'll just, and I feel that loosening up to the point where I can hand loosen. The filter actually has oil inside it, right? So I'm trying to collect that and not let it drip or spill within the area where the pan is. Here's the new oil filter. The gasket should get a little coating of oil. And I should also pour a little bit of the new motor oil into the new filter. Here's some new motor oil. We're just going to pour a little bit in, just as a primer. It's pretty much expected for when we put in the new filter that it's going to have oil in it. We're screwing the new filter on. All I have to do now is tighten it with this oil wrench, oil filter wrench. Plenty. We don't want to really over torque it. We just want it nice and tight. So that looks good. We're going to start putting new oil. This is SAE 30. Okay, what we don't want to do is overfill, so periodically I'm going to put the dipstick in there and check the levels. Just about finished the oil in this container. We didn't start full, we started at about a quarter of this particular container being full. I would guess that's about a quart. Okay, here's another quart. We'll start adding this quart of oil here. At least 1 quart in. There we go. And we're starting to see the very bottom of that pan registering. The very bottom of that repository. So we're starting to get to the point where we're going to need to pay attention. Yeah, it's getting to the point of the low fill. We're going to finish off this quart. Okay, 1 more quart. So at this point, we're at probably around 2.5 quarts of oil that we've added. And I'll say this too, that as we get closer, we're probably just going to want to stop and let everything settle. And then check it again, and then really have a good indication of where we're at. Okay, so that is certainly at about half. Okay, we've let this oil set for a good 10-15 minutes, and the benefit of doing this, of waiting for the oil to run through the system after you pour it in, is because, you know, it's not like water. It just doesn't go straight down. It's got some viscosity to it. And we want to let oil settle into the repository here. So that's all the way down. And now I can see we definitely have a respectable amount of oil in the repository, not quite halfway up. So we will continue to add more oil. This quart is getting low, probably down to a quarter of a quart left here. And yeah, I would say that that's where I'm going to stop. I am now about 2/3 of the way up of this stick, from the lowest point acceptable to the highest point acceptable. All right, so the oil fill cap goes on, the dipstick is in, the filter's on. The last thing now is to pull out all these absorbent pads that we've leveraged to try to keep oil from escaping. Here we go. There we are. You can see what we caught. We've got another one in there. And then we're going to get rid of all this waste by properly disposing of it at the boatyard. All right, I'm going to take this extra absorbent pad here and wipe down the bottom of the pan. And you can see that there's some left over, but not a lot. So I think we're pretty good. I'll probably do that one more time, but I think for the most part, this job is done. I want to thank my subscribers. I really appreciate your support. If you have stayed until the end of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would press that like button. It will absolutely help the channel grow if you do. This is Sailor Eric. Thanks for watching.